Welcome back, everybody, to the Conquer Athlete podcast. I'm your co-host, Tyler Cook, with the one and only Gandalf the Grey, Ryan Bucentini. And if I was staying on the Lord of the Rings cast, I'd probably say we're with Aragorn. Jason Lyden.
Aragorn. Which one's Aragorn?
He's the...
Is that the gay archer?
He's not
the elf?
He's not gay. He's not gay. And that's Legolas. Aragorn is the main character, the one that is the king of all men in the end. He's the one that holds it together. He's the guy.
But Gandalf,
that was a huge compliment.
But Gandalf is like, he is Lord of the Rings. Gandalf. Like he runs
is,
everything.
But he's also a wizard with a really long beard. And so Ryan naturally.
I've been calling Ryan Gandalf the Grey for a while.
I know. That's what I'm saying. So it had to be.
Listen, we need to clarify. Are you saying great or gray?
I say gray.
So
I say the
he's
gray.
Gandalf the Grey in the beginning. And then in the third movie, he comes back as Gandalf the White.
Do you want to be gray, white, or the great?
We can make it the great.
Gandalf I'm going to refrain from
or the gray, white, great. He's a combined for you.
Yeah, actually, let's not get into that. That's probably not. Let's just stick with Gandalf the Grey. I think that fits the most.
Could the elf beat up the man, though? The elf is pretty more dominant than the man, right? He's smarter, wiser, faster, quicker.
Doesn't matter. This man is just he's one of those guys where you follow him. It doesn't matter. He's just a leader. He wins. You can't kill him. That's the kind of guy.
But he's a man. He dies.
He doesn't.
Tempted by sin.
He doesn't. He's the one that doesn't get tempted. That's the whole point of the books, is that everybody else gets tempted by the power of the ring. And he turns away and leads everybody home. He's the guy. I'm telling you, that's a huge compliment.
I'm not saying it's not a compliment. I appreciate it. I appreciate the tank top.
Huge compliment. Man, the tank top, I did this on purpose. You can't see it if you're listening to the podcast, but it says Quad God. This was a gift to me from a member at the gym. Said, hey, I want you to have this. And every time I wear it, I get made fun of for it.
You have fantastic chest cleavage.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
You got the little gold chain. If I saw you in the street, I'd be like, damn, this guy can scrap.
Look at this guy.
He can scrap.
And then you find out, you're like, oh, no, he's just a lover, not a fighter.
No, he doesn't know what sumo oranges are. Yeah.
No, he doesn't. No, he eats cuties instead. Anyway, all right, boys, I had a couple of, I thought I was a little worried when I sent them over to Ryan because they might be like kind of lamer topics. They're not getting quite into lactic thresholds and the deeper sciences of things that we've gotten into before. But things that I noodle on in my little simple brain of, I think something is greatly missing. Actually, I just tipped my hand on where I stand on the argument, but there is this divide, I'd say, of athletes in the top end of the pyramid of the sport, of more athletes going to training at home, in the garage, in solitude, versus, and I'm not necessarily talking about like in the affiliate and like no one's doing class at the highest level to get to that level anymore, but in training inside of a gym with community, with other people, and the classic like Saturday morning throwdown, I think is missing at the top of the sport, because I think athletes have gotten the individualized side of programming in the sport has gone so much into everything being so individualized that we've lost a little bit of this idea of training in a group. And I'm of the mindset that, and there's a time and place. If you're doing row intervals, there's not a lot that my buddy's going to help me with. I'm just getting on the rower for an hour and it's going to suck. But I do think there's something to be said for doing something in a pack of people. I think you get more out of each session. I think you can really find another gear, whether that's racing, trying to beat somebody, or not trying to be held up by somebody. I just think there's good energy that comes from that. And I think there's a void at the top of the sport. And I'm curious to get you guys' take on if I'm way off and there's not really anything to that. It's more of a funsy thing. I think there's something to that. Again, I think we tie back to the beginning of the days when we started CrossFit in the affiliate with a class. I think there's something really to that human element of doing hard things with other people. I think will pull the best out of us. So I texted Ryan that we could go any different direction. You boys have both seen years and years and years of this and probably seen multiple iterations of both, and would love to get your take on the whole thing.
This is interesting. I kind of disagree, where I feel like it's gone the opposite route where it's not individualized. I feel like many athletes have kind of sectored towards template and camp style training versus individualized. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say?
It does 100%. I can see that.
But so your question is it greatly missing, or where do we stand on that? Is that correct?
Yeah, probably both. Like, do we think there's a void for that? Do we think it's missing, or do y'all still see people still training, and not saying in groups, but maybe it's even like with one or two other, call them training partners. And I'm not even talking about Jay, to be honest, or to back up. I'm not talking about individualized design and Ryan sitting around writing my individual program, or me following any one of these, to your point, any one of these online camps that's got their
Yeah.
compete program. I'm talking about the act of them going to the gym every day, and whether that's in their own garage with no music, just by themselves and their thoughts, or going and doing it with like other people in a group. I'm talking about the tangible act of actually training, not
Yeah.
necessarily the program.
You know, there's benefits to it all. And I think I'm going to try to look at it from 3 buckets. I think bucket 1 is myself as a competitor. Bucket 2 is looking at it from through the eyes of a competitor. Bucket 3 is from a coach. To me, there's so much good that can be found in both scenarios. There's so much good that can be found by training by yourself and understanding if it's something you really want, if it's something that you really have the grit and fortitude to dig into, and if you're training for real gumption rather than just vibes. To me, there's also a lot of good when you have training partners. And to me, there's also good when you have the ability to train with people and throw down. You know, and I'll kind of dive into these all in a second. And from a coach perspective, I think there's good in all 3 as well. And I think what the tricky thing is how do we find that proper balance based off someone's geographical region, and as well as being able to target the limiters. I think where people go wrong is when they do have training partners and they do fall into camps, too much of their training, too high of a percentage lies into the vibe effect. Hey, what are you doing? Let's combine this. Let's do this. Let's target this. Let's throw down here like that, right? And that becomes too often. And I think where people who are solely by themselves in a garage, where they miss out, is they don't have that feeling of failing, how to fail forward. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I'm losing, I'm missing, we're going head to head, they're beating me, my strategy didn't work out. I'm getting punched in the face right now, or now I'm in a lead. How do I hang on to it? It's a close match. Like the active competition, they lose out on that. And then when they do get hit with it, if they don't have that history in them from previous sport or previous experience, that's not something that most people can magically sort of grab onto, right? So there's pluses and minuses to all sides. And I think that athletes need to have a good mixture of both to be really successful. Because when you're at that high level, which is what you're referencing, and you're looking to target the top echelon of a sport, you have to truly hone in and target your own skills and your own limiters of what you need. And that's in any sport, right? Whether we're talking about CrossFit, baseball, basketball. If I'm going for baseball, I have specific drills I need to do with my hitting to make sure I know how to become adaptable to different pitches and make sure my swing path is right on balance. And the drills that I'm doing might be the same, but they might be different from somebody else. And then I also need to attack live pitching, right? And batting practice pitching. The same thing with basketball. I have specific work I need to focus on from an individualized perspective, whether it's shooting off the dribble, coming off screens, fade screens, step backs, work on my handle. But then I need to know how to apply that with active and live defense that's unpredictable, right? And we take that into our sport as well. Every high-level athlete has specific limiters that they need to focus on, whether it's building capacity, improving their mixed modal capacity, improving their fatigue limiters, improving their strength, power, endurance. And they have to target that and put in the necessary work to enhance that. But then they also need to understand how to compete. And the only way they can really understand how to compete is to compete within inside the sport. And then the hard part is to get touches of that if you're in a specific geographical region where there's not a lot of that out there, right? So you want to kind of find training partners. So do I think it's missing? Do I think it's greatly missing? I think it might be missing from certain people based off where they live. And I keep going back to the geographical region because I look at my area of Connecticut, right? If you're here and you're a games athlete, you're not really going to find other athletes that are making the games that can get, you might find people very similar, but it's not a cesspool of athletes, right? Versus if you go to San Diego, right? Or you go to other areas where you might have a ton of people there and it's a lot easier to, maybe travel an hour this way and find some good live hard competition to get after, or in like Atlanta, the A. So that's what we have to keep in mind. Is it something that people need to do all the time? No, because what I find is that the athletes that do it all the time don't really stick to what they should be doing.
Right.
If it's good to get touches from time to time, and those touches might increase around a specific training point of the year. Absolutely. And it might back off at a different point of the training year, right? And I think you periodize it just like you would with anything else to ensure the proper exposure and response that you're looking for. I'm done.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I'm signing off. Yeah, I took a bunch of notes. I agree with everything Jay said. I think first you have to look who the athlete is. And when you look at who the athlete first, that dictates how to best prescribe training. So what do I mean by that? I mean, where do they realistically thrive from a training standpoint? Do they thrive in isolation? I think Jay agrees. Like, he likes training alone. I like training alone. I like training alone in a space with people, if that makes sense. Like, I very much enjoy that. I don't like training in complete isolation. Having other people, a little bit of conversation here and there, I think is great. Other people, I think, like you, thrive in group settings. You can do the isolation thing, but you do much better in group. And there's pros and cons to both of those. When you do the polar opposite, you are now actually training for the sport. So what do I mean by that? Athletes that train in isolation, it's important. That's not how our sport is expressed, right? At the in-person competition level. So you have to throw athletes into group settings, right? There's like, when you can't control the music, like you dealt with that for a long time. When you were doing the qualifiers, like you had to have your music, you wanted to control all the variables. And then we realized that's actually a huge limiter for you. And we had to work through that. So there's benefit to training alone and then using group training as sport training. And I think vice versa, athletes who only want to train in a group setting, you force them into more isolation settings to develop grit. Right now you have to sit in your thoughts, or maybe, if I'm your coach and you're like all about the vibe, all about, people, barbells banging around you, high music, all that stuff. Well, I'm going to put you in a situation that you're training yourself, and then I'm just going to turn off the music randomly and see how you respond, which, like,
deal with it.
We did that. Like, I would text Callie and be like, go do X, Y, and Z, right? Or just like start no repping you and just to mess with your head. Cause I want to see even that, like, if you're in the middle of something and then you stop for 5 or 6 seconds, that's still 5 or 6 seconds where you're like, what the heck is going on? And I understand that now the environment has an impact on you, right? Which we don't want that. We want that to be less of a case at the highest levels of the sport. So that's that. I think training with people, we have to give limitations on. So are we training with people to really push ourselves? Like in Jay's example, right? Like if we're in a competitive build and we really want to see kind of like how we're stacking up, that can be a great tool. It can also be really detrimental for athletes where if they have a bad performance, now they start to question everything. So we have to take that into account as coaches. So if the ultimate goal is, hey, I want to train with really fit people to kind of push myself and, push my limits and see what I'm capable of, I think that's great. Where that goes downhill is when it becomes ego training, right? And now we're like, hey, I'm going to push the percentage because I want to like set the tone for things, or we're going to add volume, or we're going to change things up and we're going to, make it more high skill than maybe realistically it's supposed to be, to try to make some sort of egotistical statement to other athletes. I think that's when it becomes really detrimental and something, we need to address, which obviously leads us, and Jay touched on, sticking to the plan versus deviation. If you're working with a group of people who are like, hey, I can stick to the plan and, we're all going to do our things, and then maybe we're going to come together at the end and we're all going to hit this one piece, then I think that really makes sense. But if training together, you consistently start to see deviation in training, then it's actually doing you a bigger disservice than you think, because fatigue management goes out the window. If we're in a specific phase of training, trying to build to improve a certain quality down the road, and now we're kind of working outside of those parameters, you're potentially hurting future performances because of that.
Well, that's funny because that touches on, I mean, for 4 years, you and I have worked together. Only in the last 6 months, and that was kind of more off season, if you want to call it that kind of stuff, have I like deviated much at all. Like everything I've always been like, man, I'm paying, Ryan's doing the deal. Whatever Ryan says, there's no Saturday throwdown. There's no this. And now you've given me like free reign on Saturdays to just go in there and just mess around. It's been awesome. So much freedom. But I can't get Sydney, your athlete, to deviate once. She's doing every set of Bulgarian split squats and everything else. I'm like, Bo, if you don't get over here and throw down with us on Saturday mornings, because there's value in that.
Gonna be a stud. I want to
She's gonna
touch
be a
on
stud.
something real quick that Ryan said that I want to make sure everyone hones in on. I started in my notes, and I'm gonna summarize it with adversity. To me, biggest thing missing with most competitors is adversity training. It's understanding you don't have music of choice. You don't have your bar of choice. You don't have the pull-up rig that you love to use. You don't have the set of rings you love. You don't have who knows what else. It's like I've never seen it more in any sport than the sport of CrossFit, with having to have your training and never changing it, your training apparatuses, and that never changes, right? If it does change, like you have your rower, your biker, your barbell, your spot on the floor, your pull-up rig, all these things that we have to have a good session. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to like grabbing whatever and figuring out, putting on bad music and figuring out, like adding consequences to reps, doing things that create stress and pressure internally, and then seeing how you handle that, how you respond from that. And because to me, the only way to really truly progress to another level is your further understanding of that level of pressure needed to overcome at that point. And that's in any sport and anything you do, right? You want to get really good at basketball at a higher level, taking away athleticism. You got to be able to think fast and play fast. You want to get really good at baseball at the next level, depending on whatever it is. You got to get really good at, again, playing fast and meeting the ball and being able to be adjustable and adaptable to pitch counts to put the bat in the ball. You want to get really good at CrossFit. You got to be able to figure out how to overcome high pressure situations, taking account like the skill set and strength set and all that stuff required at that level, right? And too often times we allow ourselves to stay in this intense state of comfort, even though it's an uncomfortable thing, if that makes sense, right? We try to mask that level of comfort with our own comfort settings, where that's just hindering a lot of people, because once you get to a competition, what do you have that's yours?
That's right. You guys gotta go
Nothing,
grab it.
literally nothing, right? I've seen people in training get upset when they get no reps, getting mad if things aren't the way they need to be. To me, that's just a sign of weakness, right? That's just a sign of people not knowing how to compete, because that's going to happen. That's one of the biggest things that's missing with high level competitors is their willingness and their continued search to figure out, how can I figure out what creates more pressure internally for me and how I can overcome that, and then train in that.
I just wrote down, athletes need to learn how to find more internal motivation versus relying on uncontrollable external variables. Like if you're relying on the external for motivation, you've already lost, because CrossFit's going to change it.
I can't agree with that more. I used to have an athlete who needed to listen to like motivational speeches in the headphones before they compete. And I was like, if you need a motivational speech to compete, you're not a good competitor. Like you shouldn't need a pep talk. You shouldn't need some grandioso, Al Pacino speech before the game talking about, the game of inches. Like you shouldn't need anything. You should just be ready to go no matter what the situation is, right? The best people in the world, they don't need a pep talk. They don't need a motivational talk. They don't need a hand gesture. They just fucking know what the job is, and they're going to go out there and get the job done no matter where they are, no matter what it is, no matter how it is. Done. I'm getting this job done no matter what. Right. And that's what the high level athletes have to get to. Like, they don't need a song. They don't need a fucking vibe. They don't need someone yelling in their ear. They don't need someone screaming at them. Like, they don't need any of that. You think Jordan and Kobe need someone fucking yelling at them to train harder, to push faster? Right. Like, hell, like, are you kidding me? You're probably like, dude, slow down a little bit. Like, you're going to kill yourself or the person you're with.
In our sport, I've gotten so badly in the opposite direction where most of my shit's like country music playing, because I almost want to keep a lower heart rate. Like if I get too jacked up, now if you're going for like a lift or something like that. Like that's a little different. But other than that, man, I want to be as calm as I can be to keep, because you're already fighting heart rate and stuff. Don't get any more jacked up. That doesn't make any sense. With that, to your point, going into group training, I remember we went to Milford. I started in July with Ryan, and I came up in September for that camp. And you had some hitters there. Tony and the team were there. Aurora had come up. Will Carter was in there. You two were in there watching. So I'm a nervous wreck. I'm like, what is this? My first big camp that I'd gone to. That like adrenaline feeling of like just being in that room, I do think is good. Maybe it's ever so often. To your point of just training in an environment where like, I mean, you go to competition, you're gonna see kind of the same names, right? It's like you're next to the big name guy, and you kind of got to figure that part out. So I think there's utility in that, if not every day, but ever so often, of getting into that kind of big group environment. But to your point, it's funny to me that people deviate so much. I've seen that a ton now that I've kind of been open my eyes to like what's out there of not program jumping necessarily, but like not doing what's written on the thing. It's like, hey man, that was written very much for a reason on why you're having to hit whatever the squat or the pull is. Like that, people skipping around because they just didn't want to do it is part of the reason why you're not making the next level, whatever it is.
Potentially.
You need to clarify, or we should clarify what it is that you're actually talking about, the intention behind a camp. Camps are competition prep tools, right? It's to like be around other athletes of similar capacity to like really see what we're made of, like learn from each other, look for efficiency, have conversations around how can I improve as an athlete? Like, what has this athlete figured out that I don't understand? How are they cycling a dumbbell versus I'm cycling a dumbbell, looking for those inefficiencies? And that's when we collectively become better. That's why I'll go back to what I said before. There's ego in training with people versus elevation of performance. And that's what a camp is. And you use those at, structured intervals to learn from each other versus like, hey, I'm going to train with somebody during training who is totally going to, ego lift or whatever and take me away from the intended stimulus of everything that I'm trying to do. The biggest problem with that is all your progressive overload goes out the window. When you start, hitting those days back to back to back, all your fatigue, all that management that's been built into that week of training is now thrown out the window, and your training stimulus actually gets dulled and you're not adapting to what it is the coach is trying to get you to adapt to.
Yep. That makes sense. I should have clarified that to your point. That's a good point.
Yeah. Don't do that. Don't do that again. Okay.
That was my bad.
Fucking, we're giving you the realm. We're giving you the ship to steer. And you're guiding us into the ground.
I want to go back to Sydney though. What you're saying with Sydney,
yes,
is a really valid point. So Sydney Sanders, I know you want to be on the podcast. It hasn't happened yet.
Well, she's begging me. I'm like, sweetheart, come on.
Here's your
take it easy, Sid. Take it easy.
Yeah, dude. You just got here. Calm down.
Sid, like, she's an up and comer. Like, she's a banger. Like, she's already seen a lot of success in the sport. She's really young. I think for her, I'm not saying it's not beneficial to throw down on a Saturday with you, but she's arguably going to get a bigger benefit of just sticking with the plan, staying with the course, and like, look at your timeline. You're on a 4-year timeline, and I didn't give you that freedom till year 4, right? Because I trust you enough as an athlete to make intelligent decisions. You're not just going to go write some absolute soul crushing Saturday that's going to take you 48, 72 hours to recover from. I know we can have that 24-hour turnaround on Sunday where you rest and then come back on Monday and still be able to perform, right? Younger athletes, they're not there yet. And they're on a much stricter plan for the time being until they really learn who they are as an athlete, and they've built the volume, built the intent, the right to express that intensity with people who are further along in the sport.
How far along is Sydney in the sport?
She's been doing it for a couple of years. I mean, she's like brink semi athlete. She just needs to get stronger, right?
Yeah.
Like, lungs are there, like all her gymnastics are there. She just needs to get stronger. So actually doing a bunch of intensity on Saturday, and then it could potentially dull those, that strength progression come Monday, which that's where the bulk of her training needs to be
Yeah.
around strength development.
Yeah, I think something that's missing, and this is nothing to do with Sydney. This is just another topic on this theme. I think something that's missing with athletes is reflection almost. When you compete and you compete with intention. So it's called like a Saturday throwdown. And you're going at it, you have to go into it with intention of what you're going to get out of it, what you're trying to get out of it. I think that's missing a lot with high level athletes. Is that intentional work on what they're trying to do. What am I trying to do on this Saturday? Like, what is my purpose with throwing down? And that's a way to attack the vibe, but attack the vibe with purpose. And you have an internal understanding where the coach gives you understanding. This is what you're doing. This is what we're trying to do. This I want to execute. And then you reflect on, did that occur? Did it not occur? And why? And because every time we do something, when we're trying to get to the highest upper echelon of anything, there has to be this amazing connection of performance and reflection, right? So all the performance that's done is done for a good reason. Whether you don't do well, you don't execute well, you quote unquote fail forward, right? Like you fail with purpose. People are like, oh, failing's good. Well, no, it's not. Like if I fail trying to fly, jumping off a fucking building, like that's not good. I'm dead, right? But how can I fail with purpose and fail with intention to learn from it, to put myself in a position to get closer to what I want to get to? And then even if I did do good, okay, great. I did good here. Why did I do good? What are the things that lined me up to do well here? My execution, my game plan, awesome. Or did I just do well because I didn't quite push myself to that next level of trying to expose something, right? And that's something that's so critical for athletes to comprehend, because then you get a deeper and deeper connection to, like Ryan, we used to talk about with mindset, event plus response equals outcome. So here are the events, here's my response, and my response to purpose, here's the outcome. Okay, why is the outcome this way? From a performance standpoint, how can I improve upon it? Or how can I learn from it? Or do I just need to keep it the same for the next point, right? And I think that's missing a lot with high-level athletes.
Well, now you get into the athlete IQ. Ryan's called it for 100 years. And that's just, to me, is one of the biggest things.
Yeah, not just IQ. I'm not saying so I think of athlete IQ as 20-minute AMRAP, 20 thrusters, 20 pull-ups, 20 burpees.
And how you break that down.
I'm going to break it down this way, right? That to me, that's IQ. I'm saying okay, Tyler, we got to throw down, it's me, you, Ryan, and Sydney, and we're throwing down, and here are the 5 workouts we're doing today. And I'm coming into it, and Ryan's my coach. Like, all right, Jay, first workout, you're just going to go balls to the wall. Let's just see how you respond, what you do, how you recover, how you internally adapt, how do you autocorrect, right? That's your purpose. That's your intention. Okay, cool. Jay, second workout, we're going to break it down this way. I want you to focus on how you're going to pace and strategize and compete under structure, whatever, right? As an example, my point is just attacking and going into it with intention. I think, and guys, keep in mind, I'm not saying every single time, but I do think it's missing a lot of the time of people actually having this intention of what they're doing. Sometimes yeah, all right, Tyler, rate up to 17 workouts this weekend. Let's fucking have at it and then crush some pizza, root beer, and cookies to recover, right? And it's just kind of like figuring that shit out. I'm just saying, everything we talk about, guys, everything Ryan and I and Tyler talk about, there's always balance, right? There's always yes and no's. We're never saying this is how it always has to be done, but that intentional action is something that people have to think about from time to time.
Yes, and to be clear, when I think IQ, I'm just thinking about even going in there and thinking about what the intention is. So many athletes, I'm shocked that they go into stuff with very little plan. And then to your point, if there's no plan going in, they're just like, well, I'm just fit and I'll figure out how to hurt when I get in there. There can't be any reflection after, because they're not even thinking about it before when they're conscious before. Right. And so there's no intention after about thinking about how it went and reflection and all that. We got a new tattoo, or are we just lotioning up there? What's going on?
I hurt my arm bad at jiu-jitsu and I'm putting on some cream.
Man, I wouldn't have told that story.
I can't push. It's not good.
A little Ben Gay on there will fix anything, huh?
Oh, something. I'm going to pop some growth hormone peptides and pray for the best.
I love that. A little pre-workout peptide. That's awesome.
Going back to Sydney, something else I want to say versus Sydney versus you. I do think it comes to a point when we start talking about training age and competing at the highest level of the sport, you already know how most things are going to feel, right? So how do I keep you engaged, right? And to me, I look at Noah, I look at Travis Mayer, like people who have been in the sport for extended periods of time. And I look kind of on the tail end of what their competitive career looked like. And they actually started going the other direction of doing more community-based stuff, like doing more team stuff, like having more fun with it. Like they built such a high level of fitness that they could get away with a little bit more variation because their GPP base was so high. Like they're so adaptable. They understand, they have really good athlete IQ, so they can jump in and play in your Saturdays and not totally crush themselves. So for you, being where you're at in the sport, that's kind of where we're going. Like that's where we're headed, versus Sydney, who she really just needs to stick to the plan. She needs to develop that athlete IQ. She needs to build her base. She needs to build her GPP foundation even higher, right? Knowing that we have a clear deficit, it doesn't make any sense to really deviate from that, because training energy needs to all be dedicated to that, because her goal is to reach such a high level of the sport. So why would I waste time and allocate training time, training energy to a Saturday throwdown that realistically isn't specific to her weakness, potentially delaying her peak in the sport?
No, that makes perfect sense. She's just missing out on a lot of fun and friendship. That's all. Big friendship guy.
Are you
Big friendship guy.
Are you saying that your friendship to her is predicated on her throwing down with you?
That's kind of how it goes.
Man,
Around
11-24.
At least he
11-24
owns
is rough.
We're
Yeah.
we're cutthroat. If you're not throwing down with me, I don't have a lot of use for you.
Man,
I'm completely kidding. And Sydney
I
knows
would
love this shit.
say be happy that she's not throwing down just yet.
whoa! I know what he's saying. He's saying that she's
No,
about
I
to
saw-
smoke you. I know what
list of
that
things that
is.
she would smoke me on is extremely short.
I don't
For
know,
now.
buddy. I don't know.
For now.
I like where we're going. You know what I think is missing? I think like a good trash talker in the sport of CrossFit. I mean,
totally
there's some
agree.
people who try it, and I'm just like, you're just not good at it.
You can tell who's
Because
played
trash
team
talking to me,
sports.
when I say trash talking, I'm not saying like making a scheme on social media. I mean like you're competing and you're fucking firing jabs in the middle
Yeah.
of competition. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Yeah,
I
like I'm
totally
not
get
saying
it.
like a social media fucking jab. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm saying like we're competing out of the goal. I go, damn, bro, you look crazy tired now. You really suck. Did you sleep good last night? Like, just really fucking digging that in,
I think it's great. I think that's sport. And I think people probably take it too personal. And then also people where I don't like to engage in a lot of that with most people, unless I like really know you, is that if I need to, I will make you cry. I promise you. There's a streak in me I'm not proud of. I will tear you. It would be ugly.
I want to see that
But
streak, actually.
We don't need to get there. This is sport. And so if I'm making fun of the fact that I squat faster than you, Brandon, my teammate's 6'2", I'm going to give him crap all year because he can't keep up with me on movement speed. But he's so much stronger, faster,
Like, you and
more
I
powerful.
is so much fun. Because if you start doing that, like, yo, can you even get on fucking roller coasters? Like,
And
what are you-
that's
what are
the
you doing
point.
here,
That's
right?
where it's fun. Of like, if
Yeah.
I'm him, I'd say, hey, man, can you reach the barbell?
Yeah.
Can you reach the pull-up rig?
Oh, we
Like,
have so
are those
much
rings
fun.
too tall? Like,
Yeah.
that's to me
That's
the
fun.
part of the sport. People take it too serious, though.
Yeah,
Like,
they
if
do.
you
They
said
get-
that to somebody and all of a sudden they got butt hurt because you called them short, it's like, bro, you're short. What are you talking about?
Yeah, people get emotional around things.
They do. But I think it's healthy. And I think like Saturday throwdowns or camp, and again, maybe I should have specified that early, but like camp, I think those are tremendous opportunities for that. And I think it just makes it adds a little bit of fun into what can be a monotonous. I mean, training can be boring at times. I mean, there's times when I would text Ryan like, hey man, this was fine. It was just very boring. And he's like, classic Ryan, right? Winning isn't boring. I'm like, yeah, but it's boring today, Ryan. I'm losing my mind
facts.
today.
Facts. You're like, I know, bro. I
I know that.
I'm just
I get
saying
it,
today.
Ryan. Winning's boring. Winning isn't boring. I get it. But when
I'm
am I
just
gonna
saying
when am I gonna
today.
get that chance?
Yeah.
No, I get it.
Yeah, I
This
mean,
is
Jay, like you can, I guess to kind of close it out, you being a speaker at Power Monkey and, for what feels like a decade, I think you've seen firsthand like the power of a camp, right? You take a bunch of athletes, you bring them of like very various fitness pedigrees would be my guess. And you put
Mhm.
them around a bunch of elite level coaches, elite level athletes, and it's a knowledge transfer. And that is arguably one of the most powerful things. And what a camp is really designed to do is transfer knowledge, like all that experience. So yeah, like if you're an athlete that feels like you're limited in those areas, look for those sorts of things, because that's where you're going to get a firsthand opportunity to express something and be around people who can point those limiters out for you.
Done. Tyler, close it out.
Thank you all for listening this week, y'all. You know the drill. Like, comment, and subscribe. And then also we're going to shout out now I can't think of the name of the
Come on, man. Come on, man.
account. God dang it. What is it?
Coach Arts
Thanks for listening,
Podcast
y'all.
and Candace
Coach Arts
Dixon.
Podcast with Candace. God dang it, Candace. I'm so sorry. I'm an embarrassment. That's the end of the show, guys. Tune in next week.